Okay, so our final presenter to close off this virtual symposium is going to be Trish Brockman. So Trish Brockman is a first-year master student in Dr. Gary's Road of Applied Forest and Wildlife Ecology Lab. And she has a bachelor's degree in zoology, in fisheries and wildlife, or zoology, fisheries and wildlife from Michigan State. Her research interests lie in how management practices impact rare species. And her prospective talk that she's going to be giving us today is titled Working Forests and Wood Turtles, Effects of Forest Management on a Species of Conservation Concern. Trish, you can go ahead and give your presentation.
Excellent. Thank you, Edith. And also, thank you to everyone for being here today. I know this is the last presentation of the last day, so thanks for sticking it out to hear my presentation. So yeah, like Edith said, my name is Trish Brockman, and this is a perspective talk. So I've already completed one field season, but I have quite a few more to go. So my topic today is Working Forests and Wood Turtles, Effects of Forest Management on a Species of Special Concern. Oops. I can't change my slides. Oh, here we go. Okay, so first off, I'd like to introduce my project partners and my co-authors. So my co-authors are my major advisor, Dr. Gary Roloff at MSU, Bradley Potter with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and Dr. Darren Miller with the National Council for Air Stream Quality Improvement. We're awarded our funding by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service through the NCASI Foundation that sponsors research and support for private forest industry to promote clean air, water, and sustainable resource use. And they're partnered with the National Alliance of Forest Owners, which is an advocacy group of private forest owners committed to advancing federal policies to provide clean air, water, and wildlife habitat in working forests across the country. And the NAFO member companies that we are working with are the Lime Timber Company, Hancock Resource, Natural Resource Group, and Mulpnis Woodlands Group. And combined, they have come together to create the Wildlife Conservation Initiative. And kind of give a little background on this. So the National Alliance of Forest Owners, which we'll just call NAFO from here on, they 70% of the working forests in the United States are privately owned. NAFO member organizations manage 13% of those. And so this has a large implication for habitat and wildlife impacts. So the Wildlife Conservation Initiative is a partnership between the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, NAFO, and other organizations, and their mission is to use sound science to inform forest management practices, focusing on enhancing and maintaining young forests, open canopies, riparian zones, and other aquatic habitats. And their goal is to use forest management as a conservation tool to help at-risk species on privately forested and managed lands in the US. And they've identified the wood turtle as a species that may benefit from sustainable forest management. And it's currently a species that is up for listing under the Endangered Species Act, and needs more information collected to inform that decision. So you're probably wondering, Trish, what about the wood turtles? Well, let me tell you a little bit about wood turtles. So the wood turtle, Glyptomys sculpta, is a turtle found in the Northeast and upper Midwest of the United States, covers about 19 states. It's also found in a number of provinces in southeastern Canada. So they're a medium-sized, robust, semi-aquatic turtle They're tied to river systems with sandy banks that are often bordered by forested uplands. And they really rely on areas of open canopy created by natural disturbance and, more recently, human activity. So wood turtles get their names because the carapace, or upper shell of the turtle, has these really nice concentric growth rings that look a lot like tree growth rings, and you can actually count those to tell the minimum age of the turtle. They have the upper parts of their body are kind of like a dark brown or black color. Their undersides are often a bright orange or yellow. And they have these really big, like robust kind of almost tortoise-like feet for moving over land, and their back feet are actually webbed, so they're equally fast moving over land as in water. They are omnivorous, and they feed both in water and on land, so they're eating a lot of invertebrates, amphibians, fish, also mushrooms, berries, and slugs. They really like slugs. Their home range size is 1 to 30 hectares, and that depends on the region in which they're found, but usually they're found within 30 meters of moving water, so they're really tied to those riverine systems. They display high site fidelity, usually around nesting areas, so they'll visit the same nesting areas from year to year, some of them traveling over 3 kilometers annually to preferred nesting sites. They're a very long-lived species. They mature at about 10 to 20 years old. They've been observed over 40 years old in the wild and can possibly live into their 70s and 80s. So the threats they face are habitat modification, nest predation, adult mortality, and more recently poaching for the pet trade. They're considered a species of greatest conservation concern in all the states in the US in which they occur. They're a species of special concern here in Michigan. They're protected as threatened in Canada, and currently they're up for review for listing as a threatened species under the US Endangered Species Act. So what are our objectives? What do we want to find out about wood turtles? So we'd like to confirm occupancy records of wood turtles, historical occupancy records of wood turtles in basins with a high percentage of NAFO ownership, so that's privately managed land. We'd like to survey additional proximate basins without historical occupancy records in areas owned with a high percentage of NAFO ownership. We'd like to parameterize detectability of wood turtles in survey basins. We'd like to use VHF radio telemetry to explore their spatial ecology and track female wood turtles, to also look at their nesting ecology in these areas. And we'd like to relate this all to recent forest management. So where are we looking for these turtles? Where are we working? So our study area is located in the western upper peninsula of Michigan. You can see that highlighted here. And we have 25 watershed basins that we will be surveying, and we're drawing all of our inferences at this basin level. So we have 25 basins chosen based on historical occupancy records and proximate basins dominated by NAFO ownership. They're between 4,000 to 15,000 hectares in size, so they're pretty large. The northern region is pretty high elevation bedrock with incised streams. Our central region is a little bit more kind of moderate elevation. We have more extensive wetlands. And then in the south, we have pretty extensive wetlands. It's pretty flat country, and there are a lot of drumlins. And the National Alliance of Forest Owners, their member organizations, own about 47% of the land in those basins. So how are we going to survey for wood turtles? So first, we're going to do some visual encounter surveys. to determine their occupancy status and to parameterize detection. And we're going to do that by locating our basin of interest, honing in on the stream. We're going to choose our survey sites based on NAFO ownership, which is the hatch marks you see here. And we're going to choose areas that are associated with upland areas, which are related to nesting habitat. And then we're going to build these transects that run parallel to the rivers, and we're going to walk along those and look for wood turtles. We're going to conduct these surveys from early May through the end of June, which is kind of their active season, where they're moving between the riparian areas and the uplands looking for nesting habitats. When we capture wood turtles, we will mark them to make sure that we're not surveying the same turtles twice. We're going to get their minimum age, we're going to measure them, and we're going to look at what they're doing, their behaviors, and kind of where they're located. So another survey method we're going to use is radio telemetry to study their spatial ecology in these areas. So we want to know where they are, when are they there, and what are they doing? And we're going to target 5 females in 3 basins. So we're choosing females because they're a limiting factor in population health. And they make the largest overland movements that kind of leave them vulnerable to direct mortality and effects of forest management. We hope to track them about once per week, get their location, distance from flowing water. We want to look at the canopy cover, vegetation structure and composition, and their behavior, as well as the kind of management regime that's being used in the areas that they're using. We also want to use that information and these turtles to help us locate nesting areas as well, which are really critical to population survival. While we're out there, we're also going to assess riparian conditions related, and which we'll use to relate to turtle occupancy. So we have 10 points, which are those orange points along our first transect right along the river. And there we're going to measure in-stream and bank features like large dead woody debris, bank angle, bank slope, bank substrate, vegetation structure, and also composition. And then we have 5 points, which are the blue points, which are along the second transect, which when we walk along the transect, we just go perpendicular there and we look at the basal area of the trees, and also we record their species. We've also placed 30 generalized random tessellation stratified points within the survey basins, where we use 20 meter by 5 meter belt transects to look at things like ground cover. We'd like to tally shrub stems and species, looking at the general vegetation structure and composition, and also forest management practices within those belt transects. And we're going to use those to analyze basin condition to relate to occupancy, and also to use as ground truthing to inform our management histories that we're going to build for each basin. So for data analysis, first we're going to parameterize our detection probability and compare that to our turtle detections to survey conditions and vegetation growth along the bank. So, you know, if the vegetation's really tall, say later in the season, we might not be able to see these turtles very well. And we're hoping to use radio telemetry to kind of help refine that model. For basin level occupancy, we're going to use a single season model and hopefully relate riparian condition, basin condition, and recent management history to wood turtle occupancy. So we had a field season. It was a little shorter due to COVID. And also we were simultaneously surveying for golden wing warblers at the time, which we've since dropped, just kind of due to the complexity of surveying 2 species at once. So what did we find in 2020? Well, we detected wood turtles in 2 of our 7 basins that we were actually able to survey. Those 2 had historical occupancy records. We located 1 adult male, 1 adult female, and 2 juveniles. You can see those are pictured here. We have my field tech is holding one of the juveniles, and below is an adult male that we located. We also found 3 females crossing roads. Unfortunately, they were outside of our study area, but that was really interesting since it was after a large rain event, and so they were moving to nest as the rain had kind of loosened the soil a bit, and it was pretty good nesting conditions. And we identified 5 potential wood turtle nesting sites, which we hope to place camera traps at this field season in 2021. So what about our future plans? What are we doing? So we'd like to continue our transect and condition surveys, and we'd like to complete surveys in at least half of our basins. We're going to use VHF radiotelemetry, again, to track 5 females in at least 3 basins, so that's 5 females each. We'd like to start monitoring these nesting sites for use and also looking at predation, how that affects nest mortality. And something else that might be really interesting that I know a couple of people have hypothesized, but since the kind of resurgence of the wolf population, how is that affecting the mesopredator community that is impacting these nests? And we'd like to build a recent management history by requesting records and analyzing aerial imagery. And we'd like to build our detection and occupancy models. And in order to do that, we need to collect more data. So with that, I'd like to say thank you. Special thanks to my committee, my advisor, and my PIs, as well as the NAFO member organizations that have been really pivotal in helping us to access, navigate, and basically do our jobs the best we can. I'd also like to thank my field technician, Millie Cole, who did a great job and did not abandon me, even though we were covered in bugs and trudging through the UP for long hours into the day. So I just want to say thank you to all those folks, and also thank you to everyone here. And I hope you enjoyed my presentation. Here's my contact information. If you ever want to talk turtles, feel free to shoot me an email. And with that, I'm done.
Thank you very much, Trish, for your presentation, and it was interesting. So yeah, I enjoyed it. Do we have any questions, comments for the last presenter of our symposium? So thank you very much, Trish, for maintaining the energy and the momentum for the symposium on the final day. Joshua, yes, please go ahead.
Hi, Trish. Great talk and great job closing it out. It's a hard thing to do at the end of a long day. And you can really sense your enthusiasm for your study species throughout your presentation. So compliments to that as well.
Who doesn't love wood turtles? I mean, come on.
Right. So I had a question about your telemetry because I found that interesting. Did you guys at all consider using instead GPS units where you can create these little pings and track routes of the wood turtles? Because with your kind of relatively high detail habitat surveys, I feel like it would go pretty hand in hand.
Yeah, so that was something we've kind of been considering, and I think one of the things that held me back a little bit from that was the fact that we were only able to find so many wood turtles, and so I'd like to use the VHF telemetry. That'll get us at least, we can have a few turtles on the air and be able to track them. And we're hoping that that'll lead us to more wood turtles. And if we can find more wood turtles, then we could start looking into using those GPS loggers. And we can actually, because wood turtles are so big and so robust, we can actually double up and we can stick a VHF transmitter on there as well as a GPS logger. So kind of before I dove right into doing the GPS logger, I just wanted to see how it would go with the telemetry, and that'll also help us find like nesting sites, and we'll be able to see these turtles in the habitat in real time, and see their behavior. Are they basking? Are they feeding? That's kind of one of those questions too, is like, yeah, they're in these areas, but what are they doing there? And if there's berries, if there's mushrooms, if there's slugs, and if that's somehow related to the forest management, and we'd like to know that. So yeah, we're definitely considering it, but kind of starting out slow a little bit.
Trish, Nan has a question for you, and his question is, do wood turtles have any predators?
Yes, so definitely wood turtles have predators. As adults, they actually have a pretty high survivorship, so not too many predators can, I guess, so to speak, crack a wood turtle. You will find wood turtles with missing limbs that were eaten by like raccoons or coyotes, but for the most part, adult wood turtles are pretty safe, other than like rodent mortality or human take. Where predators really come into play is when turtles are nesting. So small predators like raccoons, skunks, possums account for almost like 90 to 100% of nest mortality for wood turtles. And so that's been a real big issue, and is probably one of the biggest threats, at least especially in these areas where there isn't a whole lot of human activity going on. These are pretty remote areas, but unfortunately these raccoons and possums are just coming in and a lot of times wiping out 100% of nests along these riverbanks or roads or wherever wood turtles are nesting. So yeah, it's a big
Okay.
problem.
All right, and we'll take our final question from Stephen.
Hey Trish, great talk.
Thanks.
Did I hear you say that you had some of the highest detections on record? Did I hear you say that? You had some pretty high detections for turtles?
No, we had very low detections for turtles.
Okay. Well,
we're hoping to figure that out, if we're good or not at finding turtles, and why we are or not. So
okay, so they're pretty low. What do you think that's like ecological or like methodological? What do you think?
So a number of different factors. One, they're pretty, well, they're rare. They also have pretty isolated populations, so they're not like a painted turtle that you just kind of see everywhere. They're really condensed in these small areas where they have a lot of like nesting opportunities, and we're still trying to figure out, apart from the nesting areas, what other factors contribute to their kind of occupancy of these areas. And then they're really mobile. So they're in the rivers, yes, but half the year or half the summer, their active season, they're up in the uplands. So they move away from the rivers to forage, look for nesting areas. And so like you saw, our transects only reach about 50 meters from the riverbank. So a lot of times, especially later in the summer, turtles are probably way beyond there. So they move around a lot. They're also even the big adult turtles, like they're really hard to see. They're really cryptic. And if the temperature is too high or too low, a lot of times they'll bury themselves in the leaves or go underwater. And so it's really difficult to find them. They're pretty tough, especially in these areas where it might not be super suitable for them, or they're just really spread out.